Did you know there's a vast jungle just outside your door? Though vastness is relative to size, of course. A garden is a big place for a mollusk that's less than 2 inches long. The garden snail is a familiar friend that lives in an alien world, within the shrubs and flowers. A land snail is no fish out of water, though. With a unique way to find and preserve moisture, they're well equipped for life, death, and taxonomy. Welcome back to Life, Death, and Taxonomy. It's your 30 minutes of interesting animal information. I'm Joe.
And I'm Carlos.
Thank you to Cassie for the creation of our theme song. To hear more of Cassie's music, please search Cassie Michelle on YouTube or Spotify.
And thank you to Johanna for the creation of this week's artwork. To check that out, you can visit us at our home of the web at ldtaxonomy.com. And a very special thank you to our patrons. Thank you so much for your support. It's greatly appreciated. Thanks for helping us keep the lights on. If you would like to donate, just visit patreon.com/ldtaxonomy or click on the donate link at our website.
And today we're talking about something you might have felt bad about stepping on in the past. I know I have.
All the
More on
time.
that later.
They're everywhere here.
Cattails.
You can't in the morning when I on my morning run. It's just like crunch, crunch, crunch. It's so funny. What am I supposed to do? I can't dodge them all.
It's like the same crunch as a leaf, but instead of satisfaction, you feel sadness.
Guilt. Yeah,
Guilt.
yeah. We're talking about the garden snail.
Yeah, garden snail. Brown.
Although the snails that we have here are really small, so I don't think this is the same species.
Oh,
These
no,
are
I'm
like-
talking about the brown, quarter-sized snails.
Yeah, that's more like these. So I don't step on these, but there's these little they're also garden
Conical-shaped snails?
Yeah, variants of garden snails, but I don't know what possesses them to want to go across the sidewalk all the time. It's like it's there's grass over there too. So but that's, those are the decisions that these snails have decided to make, and these are the consequences of those decisions, is being crushed underfoot.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we are talking about the garden snail. But what we're going to call it here is Rumpelsquelchskin and the Napstropod, for reasons that will become apparent later. But it's a snail. Let's taxonomize a snail. Let's see if you can beat me to it, you listener. At least to the order. I'll probably lose you at the order, but the kingdom, you know it, you love it, you're in it. It's Animalia. You knew that already. The phylum, it's a snail. So what is it? It's a mollusk. Mollusca. The class, stomach foot. Gastropoda. And the order, like I said, I'm going to lose you here. It's Stylomatophora.
Yeah. Stylomatophora.
Stylomatophora. The family is Helicidae. The genus is Cornu. And the species is Aspersum. So the binomial nomenclature is Cornu aspersum, which brings me to my favorite part of the show, since we're in the business of naming things and business is so good. Nitty-gritty nomenclature. The part of the show where I ask you, Joe, a question. That question is the same every time. What is the what is the it's the same every time. I can't even remember right now. What is the English translation for the binomial nomenclature? Which is, in this case, is Cornu aspersum.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean A, rough horn, B, crowned spiral, C, leading breath, or D, breathing snail.
Dang. Cornu. Well, I'm leaning towards breath. But I actually it might be ASPI would be the Latin. Asper. What were the ones? The A and B?
Rough horn and crowned spiral.
I'm gonna go with rough horn. Final answer.
That is correct.
A cornucopia of love.
You are on a roll with these.
I used my brain on that one. I was afraid to, because
Good
every
for
time I
you.
try to do that and not use my... But the first thing when you said aspersum, I thought breathing. Aspirating.
Yeah.
But then I looked at it and it's ASPER instead of ASPIR, and I'm like, maybe this is not breathing.
I didn't even think of like Asperger's. So I didn't think of that as like a part of
I don't even know what Asperger's means. I know what it is, but I don't know what it means. Like,
I don't know what it means either,
linguistically.
but I was gonna pick something that was associated with it. But nope, I didn't
that's
think of
probably
it.
a person's name.
I thought of just breathing, so I was like, that's how I'm gonna.
But yeah, cornu, I knew it was
12%.
either horn. Going with crown was also good. Horn, crown, very similar.
Yep, the asper means rough or like bespeckled with like a pimply sort of bumpy thing. But yeah, and then obviously cornu is unicorn, cornucopia, Cornelius. Classic.
Yukon, Cornelius.
He is the greatest prospector in the North. Actually, I'm reading the Cornelius Vanderbilt biography, so that's the Cornelius I think of. Also obsessed with silver and gold, believe it or not. So let's talk about what this snail looks like. It's got a compact and squishy body, which is mostly covered by a very large, well, relatively large coiled shell. It has brownish gray skin that is soft and gooey, covered in slime that is left as a trail wherever it goes. The shell itself is spiraled and usually beige with darker brown patterns. And it has on its face 2 sets of retractable tentacles. The longer set has eyes at the tips, so those are the eye stalks, and the shorter pair are kind of like a nose, like a smellticles. And those help it find food. Its body is very malleable. It can stretch and squish depending on the situation. So it can extend to be on the move and to get food, and it can retract and shrink back into its shell to avoid danger, which I mean it avoids some danger, but man, it just doesn't feel like it's enough protection.
I love a land snail, because on the land it looks like an alien. Like, you should be in space or in the ocean. It's crazy that you're here, but you're welcome. You're welcome to be.
That's what I think when I see a giraffe. I'm like, what is this? Why is it here? I expect to see this in a sci-fi.
Yeah,
like,
with the little the things that are
is
not horns, but they're horns.
the ossicones. Yeah, this is
like,
a Star Wars animal
what's
for
that?
sure.
That's doing nothing.
What is it doing? It's doing nothing. Yeah, there's like snails pose no land snails at least pose like no threat to people
Unless you eat them. Certain ones.
Yeah, but like they can't bite you, and there's the cone snails in the ocean that are super deadly, but there's nothing like that on the land. There's very little that I would like less than having a snail on me. Like it's unreasonable because they're, obviously they can't do anything. But especially when we covered the African land snail, like that one that's like a foot and a half long or something like that. It's just ridiculously large snail. Like I really don't want it to touch me. So it's
I do want to touch it on the eye stalk though, and watch
it like
the
retract slowly.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about so this is not as large as the African land snail. But it's also not as tiny as those little like conical snails I was talking about murdering in droves on my morning runs. So how big is it, Joe?
Great question. Welcome to the Beloved Measure Up segment, the official listener's favorite part of the show, the part of the show that's introduced by you when you send in audio of yourself saying, singing, or chittering the words measure up into ldtaxonomy@gmail.com. We don't have a new measure up intro this week, but that means we get to hear from an animal. And Carlos gets to guess what it is.
Ooh, a snail.
It's going to be very easy.
Okay. There's the snail from Bug's Life who accidentally orders salt on his food.
That's terrible. Without the listener's favorite part of the show.
Gary
is Turbo. I'm Whiplash. This here is my crew. I'm Skid Mark.
I've never seen that movie.
It's easy because they all say their names.
Yeah,
One of them
that
says
one's
the name
pretty
of the
easy.
movie.
So I'm going to go with Turbo.
I've never seen it either. I just really like the part where this guy, why is this snail so cool?
My name is Turbo. I'm Whiplash.
I'm Whiplash.
And the bass comes in. Yeah.
That is, it's ironic. That's why the movie is so funny. Don't you get it?
It's one joke the whole time.
It's so funny. He's a snail. He's slow, but his name is Turbo. That's peak comedy right there.
There's some funny slugs in Flushed Away, isn't there?
But that's like pure physical comedy where they just squeal and slowly, like they frantically try to get away, but they're moving really, really slowly. So it's like I remember thinking it was really funny as a kid. That's actually one of the very few things I even remember from Flushed Away was those slugs. I thought you were gonna go with Gary the Snail. That's another pretty famous one.
Mm-hmm.
That's his full name, Gary the Snail.
Nope. Turbo. We went with Turbo, a movie that neither of us has seen.
And I can't say that I'll never see it at this point because now with kids, who knows what's going to come down the pipeline. I'm watching Clifford the Big Red Dog again.
Nice.
Like I did when I was a kid on PBS Kids.
It's wholesome, and it's like one of those ones that's not like inundating their brains with dopamine. It's kind of like a slow pace.
I'll take anything that's chill. But yeah.
Let's talk about their shell diameter. I hope you can't hear the cowbell, because we bought cowbells like as a wind chime of various sizes.
That doesn't seem like a good idea.
It's not a good idea because you need gale force winds to hear the cowbell.
And now
we got them. Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, we are recording this as Hurricane Milton is passing through Florida as we speak. So,
yeah, I am not in the path. But we are getting
just
some
barely outside of it.
Yeah.
Well, if you have an illness, then you have the remedy there.
That's true.
It's just more of it.
Cowbell. More wind. Let's talk about their shell diameter. It's 25 to 40 millimeters, or 1 to 1/5 inches, which was a fun when I went on Wikipedia to look at their size. They put it in inches and fractions.
Why do we even have fractions anymore?
I don't know.
What was the point of inventing them in the first place? Decimals are better.
Something or other, please.
Decimals are the Mountain Dew to fractions Dr. Pepper. You're just going to have a harder life.
What's 5/8?
Like 0.6.
6.5?
Yeah,
0.65 or something?
0.65, yeah.
So 40 millimeters. Or 1.65 inches or something. Is it A, 3,048 snails go into the Hanging Gardens of Babylon? B, 3,004 snails go into the Gardens of Versailles? Or 5 go into a fisker's spade? Or the length of a fisker's spade.
There's just the length of the Gardens of Versailles.
Yes, the Gardens of Versailles. Yes, there is a. It's hard. If you look it up, you're going to find acreage, but there was it is a certain amount of miles long. And then the Hanging Gardens of Babylon are on this. What do they call it? A trellis. It's gardens hanging from a square trellis, if that's what you would call it. A frame.
I'm going to go with the spade one. I am not going to apply any sort of brain power to figuring this out because I have no idea the dimensions of any of these things.
Final answer.
Yes, the spade.
The correct answer is A. 3,048 snails go into the Hanging Gardens of Babylon.
I should have known that you would. The right answer was the ancient history one.
Yeah.
For you.
Yes.
And that you would try to throw me off with something that I cared about. Well, there's something that was closer to what I cared about, which is World War II.
The Gardens of Versailles is
II.
the largest garden in the world.
Oh, okay. Versailles sends me into all kinds of a tizzy.
Let's talk about their shell height. How tall is their shell? 25 to 35 millimeters. So it's wider. I guess that makes sense. Yeah. Wider than it is tall. It is a house. It's like a one-story house. 35 millimeters or 1/3 inches.
Stop it.
In height. Is it A, 436 snails go into a royal palm tree, which is there are some outside going through the ringer right now. Is it B, 26 snails go into the height of a Shasta daisy, type of daisy?
It sounds delicious. I would love to drink a Shasta daisy.
It sounds effervescent, yeah. Or 17,304,000 snails go into the width of Hurricane Milton.
That one. Final answer.
Final answer. The correct answer is 26 snails go into the height of a Shasta daisy, which is like a 3-foot tall daisy.
Shasta.
No, it's like one 1/millionth off. 1 million off. It's like 18,000 snails.
18,000 snails go into the diameter of Hurricane Milton.
As of
That's it? 18,000?
I'm not 18 million. 18 million.
Oh. I was like, no. 18,000 snails would go down the street. Like,
man, Shasta daisy. It's like really big. Very nice.
It's a very nice daisy.
Mm-hmm.
And Shasta's very nice too.
The drink?
Yeah.
But that's all I got for that. Do you have any small facts before we get into the bigger one?
Oh wow, yeah. The Shasta daisy is like, if you like, that's the quintessential daisy.
Yeah, and if you want like a bush that's all daisy, that's what you want.
Yeah, these aren't like daisy chain daisies. Otherwise, you're just gonna have these massive flowers stuck to your head, and it's just gonna be dirty. Okay. Let's go over some fast facts. The garden snail is native to the Mediterranean area, but it is everywhere. It's been shipped all over the world for the past many hundreds of years since the age of sail. So it is found everywhere.
Like Johnny Cash.
Yes, like Johnny Cash. He is found everywhere. He died a while ago, but his spirit lingers on in all places. They love gardens. They hang out in grass, on sidewalks, flower beds, wherever there are plants to eat. They are herbivorous, obviously. They like to munch on those leafy greens. They like flowers. Sometimes eat some fruit. Pretty much anything in your garden is open season for a snail, and they're pretty significant nuisances to people that like to garden. They are, interestingly enough, hermaphroditic, which means they have both male and female reproductive organs, and so they can mate with any snail that they come across, rather than having to find a member of the opposite sex. They need to keep an eye out for lots of different predators. They are extremely slow and tasty small smackerels.
Escargot.
For birds, frogs, small mammals, lizards, snakes. Hedgehogs tend to like snails quite a bit. I've had escargot in South Africa. Although I don't know if escargot is a way of preparing snails or just snails in general. But it was this like pan of just like cheese and butter. And then there were these rolled up snails kind of like slotted into it. And you kind of just ate it in wedges,
I would imagine it's like kind of like eating a clam or something. A sea mollusk.
What I mostly tasted was cheese and butter, and then there was like, there's a little like tougher part here
it's
that
chewy.
also
Okay,
tastes
that's
like cheese and butter. Yeah. Because the snail was cooked, so yeah, it was a little chewier. Not bad, but honestly, it was like if there were no snails in here, I would feel no different. I mean, it would taste exactly the same. You've just added a little bit of texture to this cheese and butter dish, and garlic. I think there was garlic in it.
That's kind of like what a lot of seafood is. It's like, let me add something solid, some solid texture to this like garlic and butter.
Yeah, this is so unpalatable that it's best if you don't taste it.
Best case scenario, it has no flavor. That's like,
but you get
it's
all
like
those
vodka.
Vodka has flavor, and I don't like it.
It tastes like alcohol.
Yeah, it's got a distinct taste. It's not like tequila where you can smell it from a mile away, but it's still like not a fan. Okay, so garden snails live for about 5 to 7 years in the wild. They can live longer in captivity if you are into super boring pets. And that's my last one. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. I'm calling this major fact silly sleeper because it sleeps silly. Do snails sleep? They do sleep, actually. But their sleep patterns are very different from most other animals, certainly different from humans. They actually have no circadian rhythm, which means their sleep and wake cycles aren't tied to day and night. They're not diurnal. They're not nocturnal. They're not precuspular or whatever the other one is. Unlike most animals,
Crepuscular.
They rely on They don't rely on daylight or nighttime for activities like hunting or foraging. They can be active anytime the conditions are favorable. Instead of worrying about the time of day, they become more active in cooler, humid periods. So a lot of times that's at night. So if you probably find yourself, if you live in Florida, accidentally stepping or trying not to step on snails at night, because
in the early morning,
in the early morning, that's when it's cool. That's when there's dew on the ground. So it's that's their preferred period of activity. But in different parts of the world, the different parts of places where these snails are, moisture and coolness can happen at various times. So they don't sleep for long stretches or for a set amount of time when they do sleep. Instead, they enter a sleep-like state intermittently, typically every 2 to 3 days. So their sleep bouts last a few hours, and then it's followed by 33 to 41 hours of activity. They rise and grind. They're the most efficient. It takes so long to get places.
Gary V. the Snail.
That should be the name of the major fact. Or the name of the episode.
Re-record, retcon.
When they're sleeping, snails show a relaxed posture with their foot, mantle, and tentacles. I'm about to say what that means.
Okay.
They slump in their chair in their lazy boy chairs.
You tell that snail not to slouch anymore. What is this relaxed posture for this sack of slime?
They're so relaxed at all times. How could they get more relaxed?
That snail, he just looks so tense. It's such a tense snail.
Their foot, mantle, and tentacles are at ease. They're not retracted. And their radula, which is a tongue, is not actively rasping.
Ew.
In other words, they're relaxed and not moving. But snails, again, it has to do with moisture. Snails sleep to retain moisture and avoid extreme temperatures or dry conditions. So rather than sleeping to recharge your batteries, to heal slightly, they sleep through warm periods and dry periods. So they can estivate, which is when it's a long sleep in the summer, or they can hibernate, which is a long sleep in the winter. And they can do this up to 3 years, depending on the climate. So
wow.
They're either sleeping for 3 hours or for 3 years. So if you own a snail, if you go down that high-octane pet ownership path, and it just
if that snail's name is Turbo or Whiplash.
If you don't see it, if it's buried itself in your terrarium and you don't see it for days, you might need more moisture. It might be going into a state of estivation or torpor. Snails adjust their sleep patterns based on environmental conditions. They might sleep more during hot or dry periods to conserve moisture without going into estivation, amelioestivation. If it's just a kind of a dry year in general, they'll sleep more often. But I guess it makes sense. If your activity leaves a trail of slime, a moisture trail, you need to like conserve
Replenish
that
that.
moisture.
Yeah.
Yeah, replenish it. So we expend energy. Well, they expend energy too, but we have to like we expend energy and do damage and put stress on our muscles and bones and brain and thoughts and organs.
Our thoughts. We do damage to our thoughts as we go about our day.
That's what dreaming they think is like repairing your psychology. But yeah, we need to sleep to like recover from that. They need to sleep to conserve and to like deal with moisture loss.
Well, they should just drink Gatorade because that's how we deal with moisture loss.
What if you put some like Gatorade in a mister and mist the terrarium, snail terrarium? Would they become turbo?
The problem is Gatorade is one of the reasons why you would drink Gatorade and not water is because it's full of salt. So no, I guess that would not turn your snail into turbo unless it was being propelled by its own effervescence.
Propel
as it dissolved.
Now there's an answer.
There we go. The one thing that snail does not need is electrolytes.
Sugar though might do a snail good.
It's true. I've not tried dumping sugar on a snail, or salt on a snail for that matter. I just crush them humanely, if by accident, of course.
Yeah. But that's all I got. That's I didn't. You never think about snail sleep patterns, but
I don't think about insect sleep patterns or like anything outside of like birds and reptiles and mammals. I don't really think too much about the fact that they have to sleep. Like fish sleep, but I don't really think about it.
I would think certain insects don't sleep.
I feel like everything has to sleep. Or unless, well, that's probably not true.
Polyphasic
I bet you
sleep.
Ants. I bet you a sponge doesn't have to sleep.
Ants sleep like have brief naps in within a 24-hour period. So several short sleeps every day.
Yeah, I think that was our major fact for the giraffe is that it sleeps like for 15 minutes every 45 minutes or something like that. And it just is like walking around and then it kind of just closes its eyes and then like wakes up and then keeps moving. Which is, talk about an efficient way to sleep. Yeah, humans got it all wrong. Like we got to stop everything.
Ants.
I've got to have a fan blowing on me. It's got to be 71.5 degrees. It's got to be pitch black, and then I got to get a full unbroken 8 hours in to be at peak performance. I wish I could just close my eyes for 10 minutes and that counts.
Worker ants sleep 250 times per day. And it lasts a minute. So it's like
that'd be a little annoying.
If you think about each one of those as a day, like the end of a day, then an ant's life cycle is long. In their perspective, it's long because
every day
it's like 9 months. Every day is 9 months to them. But
yeah,
that's all I got.
I wouldn't mind doing that unihemispheric sleep that like dolphins and whales do, where just half of your brain goes to sleep, but the other half is still like able to do stuff. That wouldn't be bad, because then you would never actually have to go to sleep fully, and you could continue to work or play or do while still
What
getting
do you
the
think you
rest
could do that only requires half of your brain power?
I don't know. Well, sometimes I would do art, I guess, because that's the one side of the brain. And then when that side of the brain goes to sleep, I would just do math problems, and that would kind of just be my whole life.
Spreadsheets and then drawing.
Yeah, I would paint, and then algebra, and that would be my. Those would be the. I would have a very straightforward but dichotomized life.
I assume that the biphasic sleep or whatever it's called is
unihemispheric.
Yeah. Unihemispheric sleep is like when you're using half your brain, you just have a general awareness. It's kind of like when you're driving in the morning and you're not thinking, your brain is like off. You'd be as focused on everything as you are like in driving at that moment. You know how like you get to a place, you don't think you haven't thought about driving or taking turns, you just do it.
Yeah, I think it's more they're sleeping, their eyes are open, they're able to see what's going on. The point for we're dipping into other episodes we've done in the past, but the point for them was that so that they could not drown.
Yeah.
They could go up and to the surface and breathe while they slept. But I don't know. People have had half their brain removed and they're not like perfectly fine, but they're still functioning. So
you could look up videos of like people that have had their two halves of their brain separated. Like there's wires that connect them, not wires, something more sophisticated than wires. And they snip those, and it's very interesting the results. I can't describe it. It had to do with like they can, if you like look like put like a barrier between their eyes, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, essentially.
Yeah.
That
would
need
be
to
really
snip
weird.
the wires in your brain in order to give charitably with a right heart. You cannot know.
Everyone says they're a multitasker, but just what happens if we snip the connection between your lobes?
Mm-hmm.
Probably not going to be that great at multitasking. But then you're going to have to learn. But then everything you do has to be multitasking. You're going to have to relearn life as a multitask. Like if I want to pick up a bowl with two hands, I have to multitask because I have to like concentrate on each hand.
Yeah.
So interesting. Wow, we've gone off on a little bit of a tangent there. I mean, I guess it's still about sleeping. But yeah, that's how snails sleep. So that was the garden snail for you out there in Podcastia. Burn the candle at both ends. Take a nice long nap. And always assume the grass is greener on the other side of the sidewalk, no matter the risk to life or limb, like the garden snail here in Life, Death, and Taxonomy.
Hey Taxonomy Titans, it's almost election season, and that means it's time for you to vote on your favorite segment of the show. Send in your votes to ldtaxonomy@gmail.com or sign up for Patreon even for free, and your vote counts twice. Don't forget to do your civic duty and vote for Measure Up or Critter Groups. But as always, thanks for listening and engaging.
American Taxonomy is my favorite in the world podcast.
Well, or pod. Life and pod and stomach.